Well, hello everybody. Welcome back to the 10 Man Horror Channel. I'm your host, Jeffrey the 10 Man Taylor Clown, because today I'm reacting to my second Spooky Vibes video, and this one is 3 Disturbing Clown Horror Stories. So without further ado, I'm going to turn these lights off, move the camera up here for you guys, and let's get this reaction on the road in the back, shall we? Okie dokie, here we go.
Have you ever been attacked in an unprovoked way? If you have, I'm sorry, and I share your pain. But let me ask you another question. Have you ever been attacked in an unprovoked way by a clown? Yeah, you need to listen to this. It was the summer of 2021, and I remember I had a really stressful day at work. I work in claims at Walmart, and the customers that day made me really want to slam my head into a wall. But that's besides the point. When I was done work in mid-afternoon, I decided to drive to this open field near my apartment to calm down and smoke a joint. Also, I was a 22-year-old male at the time of the story. And anyway, I pulled into the field in my beat-up Honda CR-V. The field faced a massive forest, and it was an overall calming place to be after such a hectic day.
Oh man, I'm sorry that he had to go through all that, working at Walmart and probably taking in customer returns. It is hectic, probably. But if he finds a nice, secluded place to go relax, you better do it before you go completely berserk.
I pulled out a joint from my glove compartment, sat on the hood of my car, and sparked up. I could instantly feel the tension in my body dissolving as I inhaled and admired the massive empty field before me. It was all going great until I saw the clown. In the distance, less than 100 yards away, by the edge of the trees, there clearly stood a clown. Now, yes, I was high, so I had to really squint and see if what I was seeing was indeed real. I remember squinting even harder, and then the clown started to wave at me, confirming that this was indeed real. It was such an out-of-place thing to see that it actually pissed me off. Because why, out of all places, would a clown be in this empty field, standing and waving at me?
First of all, I wouldn't agree with him, because if you were smoking weed, you would probably think, oh, it's a hallucination brought on by the plant you're smoking. But if he waves back at you, he's real. Oh man, this person needs to be careful and get back in his car real quick before that clown decides to charge out of the woods and attack him. But that would be scary to see a clown at, for sure.
Angry, I yelled for him to fuck off. The clown stopped waving and exited into the trees. Completely forgetting about this stupid clown, I got back to smoking my joint. About 10 minutes passed, and my girlfriend FaceTimed me, and I was telling her about my shitty day at work when I had to take a piss. I told her to hold on, put the phone down on the hood of the car, and jogged over to a tree to do my business. When I got back to my phone, my girlfriend asked me a very concerning question. She asked who I was with. I explained to her that I'm not with anyone, and I'm out here alone. She asked, then who was dressed in the clown costume? As soon as she asked this, that clown from earlier darted out from behind a tree, this time with a long knife, and was sprinting directly at me. I quickly got into my car and locked it. The clown banged into my door, laughing and saying he was going to kill me. He was violently trying to open my car door. He was stabbing my car with a knife, saying that I was going to die today. I sped out of the field and back onto the main road, my heart pounding. I could already feel something wasn't right with my car. Thankfully, I made it to my apartment complex safely, only to find out my back tire was slashed. That's why my car was driving weird. I looked at my car and saw the deep slashes in my door and hood from the clown's knife. I was so thankful to God that my car was able to drive away from that maniac, because if it was stranded, which I'm sure that's what that clown wanted, then this story might have had a completely different ending. But yes, this was a completely unprovoked attack from this clown. I have no idea who they were or what their motive was. I like to think they would have not actually harmed me, but the damage to my car says otherwise. I don't go to that spot in the field anymore. If I'm having a rough day, I'll just smoke in my car or on my apartment balcony. And I do have one message to that clown if he ever reads this story. Fuck you.
That's one good strong message to send to that creep. I probably would have said something like that too if I got chased by a killer clown. But if he was just a guy out there dressed up like a clown to scare somebody if they came near his field, hey, it worked. You scared the crap out of that guy for sure, but then you had to go really that far and slash his tire and stab into his car with a big knife. That's just wrong. So that tells me that it wasn't no prank. He was really going to kill him. But thankfully his car made it to his apartment and he got out there safe. But man, I'm not surprised he did not say he reported it to the cops and showed him the evidence with his car and then go back out in that area to try to find him. But I bet you if they did, he probably would have already skipped the woods and field already and went somewhere else. So you see a clown like that with a big long knife coming towards you, you better get in your car and run, because it don't look like he's playing no joke. He really wants to kill you probably.
What's your biggest fear? Is it flying? Spiders? Sharks? Well, to put it simply, mine are clowns. And here's why. I was a teacher for a local middle school in central Pennsylvania.
Okay.
And it was nearing summer vacation, and I'd stayed after school to grade some final papers. By the way, I was a 25-year-old female at the time of the story. Anyway, I was just finishing grading my last paper when I noticed something directly outside my classroom window. It was a clown, standing right outside and looking directly at me. My first reaction was to laugh at the absurdity. It was a poorly dressed clown with smeared makeup and a bad wig. I honestly thought it was someone trying to be funny, but failing miserably.
If you see somebody dressed up like a clown at your window, I'll be jumping back for sure. I wouldn't be laughing. I'll be like, are you trying to give somebody a heart attack, dude? And if they look more serious about what they're doing, then I'll threaten them. If you don't leave this window, I'm calling the cops. Plain and simple.
It was all fun and games until the clown grabbed an axe from behind him and wielded it like a firefighter. The clown was spinning the axe in his hands, not breaking eye contact from me inside my classroom. I stopped laughing. There was a crazed look in the clown's eyes that looked sinister. I stopped my grading and went straight to our security team. I told them about the situation, and we rushed outside. But when we got to the front windows of my classroom where the clown was standing, he was gone. I made a report with the security, saying that I felt unsafe, and the security team escorted me to my car and watched me drive safely out of the school parking lot. Unfortunately, this is not where my story ends. Later that same night, I was upstairs in my bedroom grading more paperwork. It was well past midnight, and I was about to call it quits for the night, when there was a loud banging from downstairs. The bang had sounded like someone had hit my front door with a sledgehammer. I sprinted to my kitchen, grabbed a steak knife, and approached my door. Before I even opened it, I could see the piece of axe blade sticking through to my side. I carefully opened my front door. Outside was dark, and no one was in sight. I made sure the coast was totally clear before I examined what had made that loud noise. Stuck deep in my front door was an axe. I was dialing 911 from my phone when I noticed the axe was holding something else up. It was a note. Written in what looked like red paint was, "You're the worst teacher ever, and I hope you die." Signed, Billy the Clown. I knew instinctively that whoever was dressed as the clown earlier that day was responsible for this attack, and that's when I realized that I was no longer safe in this area. Police were called, and reports were made, but ultimately, I decided that I needed to relocate. I was not comfortable knowing this clown stalker knew where I lived. I have my theories of who it could possibly be. When you're a teacher, unfortunately, not every student likes you. I do believe it was one of my disgruntled students from the past, but I have no proof. I moved to a different state altogether. I won't mention that state, in case my psycho clown stalker reads this. I now live in peace, and there have been no attacks. But still, clowns are my number one fear.
See, this teacher wasn't even afraid of clowns until some psycho student of his had to dress up like one to scare the crap out of him. But anyway, I'm glad that that teacher is all right and didn't have that fear of being stalked by that crazy kid dressed up like a clown again since he moved to another state. But that is just wrong. Students should not be even treating their teachers with disrespect. I know some of them might be by the book and you got to get your work done, but some of them can make your day happier and have more fun.
What are the odds that your house would be broken into? The FBI crime report states that 1 in 36 homes would experience a break-in. But what are the odds that a clown would break in? Now that's a different story. Listen to this. I was dog sitting for a family friend of mine a few years back. It was during my summer vacation, and it was good money. By the way, I was a 17-year-old female at the time of this story. Anyway, this family lived in a very upscale neighborhood, and they had 2 beagles. And when I say I was dog sitting, I was actually spending the nights with them too. It was a Saturday afternoon in mid-June. I was walking both dogs around the block, minding my own business. I was just cleaning up their number 2s when I suddenly saw a clown standing across the street. I had to squint my eyes to make sure what I was seeing was real. Mind you, it was in the 90s that day, and very hot. This clown was dressed in thick layers of wacky clothes and had a full face of paint. I remember my first thought seeing the clown was that he must be dying of heat in this clothes.
I was just about to say the same thing because clown costumes ain't lightweight and breathable sometimes. You might overheat in them things quick. And if you're just wearing colorful flannel shirts and pants that are made out of the thick material, then yeah, you're definitely going to get hot. And also having face paint on, all that stuff is going to start running. This person needs to hurry up and get that dog away from that specific area that the clown is at and get back in the house quick.
Nonetheless, the clown and I stared at each other. It was such a bizarre moment for me, because again, my friend's family lives in a very upscale neighborhood, and this clown stood out like a cold sore. And I was starting to get nervous the way he was staring when he waved at me. It was a simple, slow wave and a slight nod of the head. And at this point, both the dogs felt this creepy vibe and started barking at the clown. The clown then put his hands to his mouth like he was giggling. I pulled the dogs by their leashes and told them, "Let's go, we're heading back to the house." I remember when I turned back around, the clown was gone. Honestly, the rest of the day was normal. I stayed in the house, watched TV, read some of my summer reading, and played Candy Crush on my phone. Even though the encounter with the clown was odd, I had nearly forgotten about it by the time it was dark. Later that night, I took the dogs out one last time, made sure the house was locked up, and then fell asleep on the living room couch, watching some murder documentary. Around 2 in the morning, the dogs started barking like crazy. I instantly woke up and went to where they were barking. Both dogs were by the front room windows, their front paws on the windowsill, barking like mad. I told them to shush and calm down, but they wouldn't listen. And that's when I looked out the window. Standing in the driveway were 3 full-grown adults dressed as clowns. They were each holding a red balloon and waving at me gleefully. I ran back into the living room and grabbed my cell phone. I then barricaded myself in the upstairs bedroom while I called my dad. When I was through explaining to him what happened, he said he'd be right over. When my dad got to the house, there were no clowns in sight. I still didn't care and demanded that he take me home. The next morning, I had to explain to our family friends why I left the house in the middle of the night and couldn't feed or walk their dogs the next morning. I was completely honest with them, and they were understanding. They ended up hiring somebody else to finish off the weekend for me. Now, in the beginning of the story, I mentioned the breaking and entering stats. Here's where they come into play. The next day after this happened, I was sitting with my family in our kitchen, going over the events of last night, when I got a text from an unknown number. I opened the text and have not been the same since. I received multiple photos of me from the night before, sleeping on the couch, like pictures taken directly in front of my face. In horror, I scrolled through all the photos when I found one of me still sleeping and someone making me hold a red balloon. A red balloon, like all the clowns were holding last night. That means those clowns broke inside the house last night and took pictures of me sleeping. Hundreds of questions flooded my brain. How did they get in? Did they steal anything? Do I know who they are? Sadly, I'm left with more questions than answers. I was never allowed to dog sit another family again after this happened. My parents were equally as shocked and disturbed, knowing how close their daughter had come to being kidnapped, assaulted, or even worse. I've since deleted those photos and have moved on with my life. Though I now have an unhealthy, but understandable fear of clowns, nothing like this has happened since, and I pray to God that it stays that way.
That is just horrible. You would think you're safe in the house, and all of a sudden, 3 clowns came in there and took pictures of you, and one of them had to be you holding a red balloon. I don't blame her parents for not allowing her to dog sit anymore because they're afraid that this might happen again. But she shouldn't have deleted those photos. She should have had them printed off and saved. But I don't know if they will do anything to convince the police that you might have clowns stalking you. But this is why people are afraid of clowns now, is because of these a-holes dressing up creepy clown face paint and costumes, and they're doing all this terrible crap. Because I know every time these people that had experiences with these scary clowns run into a nicer one, they're not going to look at them the same way again, which is a shame. But I'm just glad that she won't either assaulted, murdered, or kidnapped from them guys. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, turn on those post notifications for more spooky vibes, content like this. This has been another successful installment of the Tin Man's Quarter Channel. I'm your host, Jeffrey the Tin Man, Taylor the Clown. And I'll see you next time in Clown Alley. Ta-ta, have a nice day, buddy.